This is a Flipping Junkie podcast, episode 39. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. All right, welcome back. Thanks for listening to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about how to determine your target farm area. Some people just assume that the entire city where they're going to be investing will be their farm area, but I think people ought to focus a little bit more and be a little bit more targeted and expand once you get your brand sort of recognized and start to do a lot in a certain area. So we're going to be talking about that with Lamar out of Austin. A great guy. He's a real estate investor who loves to travel the world. He set up his own business to allow him to do deals no matter where he is. And his strengths are strategy, marketing, and strong mentality. He enjoys experiencing new cultures, trying new foods, reading, writing, poetry, and playing basketball. So Lamar is going to be on the show talking about how he determines where to target within cities and maybe even which cities to target when he's looking at flipping houses as he does so remotely, which will give you a good idea of if you're going to start out locally, help you figure out where to start out and where's the best place. Obviously it's, not going to be a high-end neighborhood, upscale neighborhood for most people as investors because that's a lot harder to get into financially, and the risk is a lot higher with each property. So we'll be talking about all the pros and cons of the different areas and parts of town and where you should be looking to invest in this episode. All right, hey Lamar, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Wanted to talk with the audience about how to determine target farm areas for people. And to get started, though, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's find out what your background is, how you got started, why you got into real estate, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, we can go. We can start a little further back, and we'll talk about like how I think and stuff like that. But growing up, I have two brothers and one little sister. And growing up, we always had different chores we had to do. My dad had a construction business, so we always worked with him in his construction business. And even whenever we had to do our chores, I would always figure out like what I can give my brothers so that they'll do my chores for me, so I can go outside and play basketball. And so I would give them the little bit of money that I could scrounge up. I would give them basketball cards; those were pretty big back then. And or I would give them something cool that I had that they didn't, that they wanted. And so I guess I was outsourcing at an early age, and it was kind of cool. But as I got older, I didn't really want to go into real estate because growing up and working in construction and doing like manual labor, it wasn't really like something that I wanted to do. And then I noticed that the wealthiest people in the world, they're not doing the hardest work in terms of like manual labor. And so I started looking into that, and I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And the other thing that helped me want to become an entrepreneur is when I was going into college, I was in high school and I was looking up, I think I was like doing a search on the internet for like 6-figure jobs. And then, so I'm doing a search, and like every job that I pulled up, you have to have like 10 years experience. And so I didn't want to like go to college for 4 years and then graduate and then work 10 years and then eventually maybe start making the lower 6 figures. So I was thinking that there has to be another way to do it. And so I just decided that being an entrepreneur would be the best route. And so I went to college. I played basketball in college. And then after college, I started working at an IT company. After a while, I became the vice president of operations there. But it was still like a job, so I was still working for someone. So I decided to leave that position after like 3 or 4 years, and then I started a marketing company, and that was pretty cool. But that was like my first experience in being self-employed. So basically, what I did is I created like a pretty good paying job for myself, where I'm working 60 hours a week, and I have like 15, 20 people that I'm managing, and hiring new people like every week and stuff like that. And so that wasn't really my style. And I was about to open a new office in Houston, and then at that at that same time, I ended up doing a couple real estate deals, and then I realized that with real estate I can work much less time, and I can make quite a bit more money. So I went into real estate and start doing that, and now here I am today, and I use my real estate business as a way to make money, as well as be able to travel around the world with my friends and hang out and still make money and do deals while we're out of the country.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I think a big reason why a lot of people get into the business, because of the freedom it affords you. And so what did you start with? Like, what kind of investing did you start with? Were you wholesaling from the get-go? Did you start with rehabs? What?
I started out wholesaling, and I've never done a rehab in my whole life. The only thing I've done is wholesaling and rentals and new development. So I haven't done any rehabs. I guess in my mind, I just think that rehabs aren't really. I don't have the system set up to do it the correct way to make it fit my style. And I don't want to be in Thailand worrying about if the painters are doing what they're supposed to do, or if the people are putting up the sheetrock and stuff like that. And so a lot of times we get those opportunities, but we just pass them on to other investors that can capitalize on it a little bit better than us.
Yeah, no problem. So what you want to go ahead and get started then with where to find? So like, how do you pick, since you invest in several different cities, what's sort of your criteria for finding which cities you want to invest in?
The first thing my first criteria is and then it could be different. People can have their own style, but with me, I always like investing in the most competitive, hottest areas of a city. And so when we started out this in Austin a while back, we got some couple deals on the outskirts of town, and it wasn't really they're pretty good deals, but it took a while to get rid of them, to sell them. So we just decided that we're gonna just invest in like the hottest, most places with the most action. And so we picked about 10 zip codes, and we focused on those. And every time we got a property, it sold within a day or two, if not that first hour. And so that's the kind of style that I like, because the faster a property sells, the less you have to worry about it, and the less time you have to spend on it, calling people, texting people, sending out emails, and then answering all those calls. And so the first thing we do is we always run data. So at first we were just making decisions based on like opinion and what we think and what other people we know are doing. But after a while, I realized that that's not a scalable way to do business. So if I want to be able to be like the eBay of buying houses, then I can't make decisions based on opinion. I have to have some kind of data to back up that decision, and go from there. So we started pulling data based on where people are buying, investors are buying properties, and the volume of where they're buying. So if someone's buying in one zip code, if the investors are buying, let's say in the last 6 months, there's 50 cash sales in that area where investors bought the houses, and then there's another zip code where there's only 2 cash sales. Then I'm probably going to lean more towards the zip code with the 50 cash sales, because I know that from the numbers, it shows that more people are wanting to invest in those areas. And so that's the main thing that we started doing, and we were getting that information from MLS, and then we found out that you can get the information off of List Source. So we have a pretty cool process that we use now that we can pull that data, because the first time we we have this pretty complex set of numbers that we pull, and the first time we did it, it took 500 hours of human work to get it done. And I had some VAs in the Philippines do it for me, and so it took about 500 hours. And then the problem is it took a long time. So 500 hours, it takes a while to get all those hours complete, and the data is something that we need immediately. And then with us, we need that data quickly. So I had to figure out a faster way to do it and a less expensive way to do it. And so we ended up finding out a way to get the whole thing done in about an hour, because it's mostly automated now. And then so we can get that info, run the numbers, and then we can find the places that we want to invest in.
Okay, so that's strictly determining what parts of town has the most transactions for investors, right?
Correct.
All right. So do you want to explain, what kind of data you're pulling and what you're looking for, and what the end result is that it spits out? Like exactly, like, so does it spit out a ranking of zip codes with the most active, like, sorted by most active to least active or something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So basically, what we do with list source, we play around with the data. So basically, we sort it by. I'm gonna do it off of memory, since I don't have it up in front of me. But basically, we pick our geography. So we'll usually start with MSA. So we'll start with, let's say if we're doing Detroit, we'll start with the Detroit MSA. And so that's basically Detroit and all the surrounding cities that make up the Detroit metropolitan statistical area. So we'll pull all that information, or we'll put that into a list source, and then we'll go to a property type, and then we'll do houses only. And then from there, we will do houses that were the last sale was within the last 6 months. And then we'll do houses that have 99% to 100% equity. So that means most likely the house was bought with cash. And then we'll go to the sort where it's absentee owners only. So basically what we're doing is we're finding the absentee owners that bought a house for cash that are in the inside of the metropolitan area that we're looking at within the last 6 months. And then we'll also I'll also pick a sort where I can do companies only. So individuals buy houses with cash sometimes, maybe for their personal residence, but usually most of the time when a company is buying a house cash, a LLC or a corporation, they're buying a house cash, usually that's because it's some kind of investment that they're doing with the house. And so once we do that, then we pull that list, and we don't actually buy the list. We just go into there's a part on the last page where you're about to buy the information, and you can do a preview of the data. You can select the certain leads that you want to buy, and then you can sort them by zip code. So it'll email you the number of houses that meet that criteria in every single zip code that you in that area that you choose. And then from there we can just rank those zip codes, and then that way we know that in that.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, and then so in that area we know all the zip codes and based on which ones have the most action. And so let's say I have a limited budget, or if I want to only do like the hottest places in the whole United States, then I can just sort it that way, and then I can make sure my budget is going to areas where as soon as I get a property that makes sense, I'm going to be able to sell it instantly. And so that's what we like, is we like just getting rid of things really quickly. And so if we're able to do that, then it works. And I guess there's some other strategies that people can use and different things, but this is the one that I've found that every decision we make is a decision that lets us have like the most stress-free type of business with the most time freedom. And so that's the way we do it.
Great. So what out of that required 500 man hours before in the past?
Well, that's just, so that is probably like one of the most important parts of it. And so if I was just starting up right now, that's probably the only data that I would consider. But the 500 hours was analyzing the entire United States and pulling all that data. So a lot of times when you're pulling this much data, you're waiting quite a bit because you're waiting for the system to like update all the numbers, because there's millions of houses in the United States and you got to narrow that criteria down to exactly what you want. And then the other thing is the cash sales is one column, which I think is probably the most important column. But then we have about 8 more columns of data that we use to kind of rank each zip code or each city, depending on how we're doing the investments. And then that tells us which markets are better for whatever strategy that we're gonna do. So if we're looking at wholesale deals, then we're looking at areas that have high number of foreclosures or high number of something that indicates there's motivated sellers there. And then we also look at the medium home value, that fits in what we're looking for. So if we're going to be doing wholesale deals, then it just depends on the strategy. But most wholesale deals, well, it's really easy for people to get a loan in the $150,000 range, like a hard money or investment loan. So anywhere around there is good. So basically, the closer it is, the median home value in that zip code is to that, then the higher that zip code's going to rank. So it's pretty complex, and it's something that we developed over time. But I think the most important part of it is just the cash sales, because that'll at least lead someone into the right direction. So if they live in a city with like 50 zip codes, then they're not just trying to guess which ones are good. They can at least know where most investors are picking the deals. And then the other thing I like to do is if someone's a new wholesaler and they don't want to do this process, or they haven't thought of that, or they don't have access to it or something like that, then a cool thing that we did is we just when we're building our buyers list, we just ask everyone where their favorite place to invest is in the area. And then so most people are going to repeat the same couple areas over and over and over, and then so you can know where the hottest areas are as well. So I think that's something that we found to be successful for us starting out without using any data, and we're just basing that off of talking to people and networking.
Right. So some of those other criteria you were talking about, you said you use some other criteria. Is that foreclosure rates? Is there a field or something to tick to filter that in list source?
Yes.
For foreclosure rates. Okay, so when you're doing wholesaling, you want to give some weight to that to try to determine. Okay. Yeah.
So if there's a zip code with a lot of cash sales but not that many foreclosures, that can mean many things. It can mean like all the investors are scooping up the houses before they go to foreclosure, or it could just mean that most of the sellers there don't really get into financial distress. And so we like to do the places where there's high cash sales as well as high foreclosures, because that means that a lot of these houses are still getting past investors and still going into foreclosures. So that might mean there's not enough marketing getting out to them,
right,
or there's not enough solutions that they have to get rid of their house in a creative way so that they can prevent the foreclosure. And then so for the amount of foreclosures is kind of like a motivation indicator for us to tell us how motivated are the people that live in this zip code on average.
All right, great. And then, so what are some of the other criteria then?
The median home value is another criteria for us.
So basically, if you're not downloading all those records and paying for them, then you're just doing the filter to get the count.
Yeah, you're doing the filter to get the count, and then you can export the count by zip code, MSA, city, different things like that. And so you can export that, and then it'll send the information to your email, and then you can just open that in Excel spreadsheet and then start building your data there.
All right, cool. Yeah. So what other fields do you use?
And then we also use days on market, because that's important, because even if everything else is good, but the days on market for that zip code is really high. Let's say it's like 90 days on market, then that means like it's not a good chance that if I get something there, I'm going to be able to move it quickly.
Yeah. Do they have that on list source?
No, that's not on list source. So we have to like search around to try to find that. Some cities we have to get it from Redfin. Some cities we have to get it from Trulia. Some cities we can't find it, and so it's just kind of like a majority of them we can get off using Redfin.com, and we use that a lot in our business because it's like the most versatile version of a non-MLS site that I've come across.
All right, cool. So, all right, so that's determining, for wholesaling. So if somebody's going to be rehabbing, do you think that they would use the same sorts of lists, maybe ones that are more focused like on the median home values?
Yeah, I think the cash sales wouldn't really matter as much for someone that's flipping a house. I think the thing that would matter more is the median home value and the days on market. That would probably be the two most important, because if you're doing a rehab, you don't want to have a rehab in a city, in a area that has an average of 90 days on market, even though that's how long some of them stay on there. But if 90 is the average, then that means there's quite a few that stay on longer than that, and there's not that much new buyer action going on in that area. So we like to keep it under 30 to 40 days. If we're going to do a rehab, then we'd only do it in areas that are less than 30 or 40 days.
Yeah, especially in Texas, the way the market's been, I mean, if the house isn't sold in 30 days, then you might be just priced too high is all it is. Yeah, definitely.
And so, and the other thing, like, I think the thing that's even more important than this, even if someone skipped like selecting a market, I think the more important thing is the mail that you're sending out, or the types of marketing that you're doing. And so let's say you have the perfect area, but you send out the exact same marketing that looks exactly the same as everyone else, then the chances are that your response rate is going to be really low. And so what we found is a good tip that we found is we try to find what everyone else is doing, and then try to figure out a way we can stand out or do something a little bit different that'll still get us a good response rate. And when we do that, we've noticed that we get deals where other people don't really get deals. So there's a couple different ways that we found this to be useful. So one is either I can develop a really good relationship with someone I bought a house from, or a really good relationship with someone that didn't sell me their house, that owns a house, or someone I know, maybe another investor. And then tell them that every time they get a piece of mail that says anything about buying their house, I ask them to save that, and then every now and then I go pick that up for them, or someone on my team will pick that up from them. And then that way we can see what all the different direct mail is that other investors are sending out. And then I also talk to people that are taking any kind of real estate course, and ask them like what kind of marketing do they do, and different things. And then that way, because if there's a real estate course being taught, then you know that a lot of the students are doing exactly the same thing, and they're doing the exact same kind of sorted list. And so in Austin, probably about 3 years ago, everyone was only doing most people were doing absentee owners with 3 2s that had houses that had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and then so what we did is we did those 3 2s as well, but then we also did houses that only have 1 bathroom, and houses that are less than 800 square feet. And we ended up getting like some really good big deals that the seller didn't get any other letters from anyone else, because most people were missing out on that. And so it's just finding out those little places that people are missing. And when you have those places that people are missing, you find yourself a little gold mine that'll last for a year or two. And so that's probably all you need if you want to grow your business pretty big. So I think that's some things that helped us out in terms of like direct mail once we identify these hot markets. Because if I'm in a hot market in an area that's like really hot, like the way that we like it, then for sure there's going to be a ton of marketing going out to that area. So you just have to figure out a way to stand out, as well as be a little different, and go places where people aren't really touching.
Right. Yeah. That's yeah, and I think that goes to the general message of take the time to think through what you're doing and do something different.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the thing, you know, with the thing with everybody doing the same stuff is like, I heard so and so say that this works really great, so I'm going to just do this too. And then you have everybody sending the same message, and there's no way for those sellers to know that it's from different people. And if they get another one from that person, whether it's from them or all the other people that send that same postcard. I'm sure you've seen that postcard, that urgent notice postcard. I think,
yeah.
You know, you know, typical sellers get about 30 of those.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're sending them too, you might want to think about changing that. You know what I mean? So, but,
yeah, definitely. And so we send all different stuff. I think the main thing is people need to like no matter what, you have to test things on your own. So you have to know that every time you do something, you need to measure it and then see how well it worked and try something different as well. And then see what gets you the best response, and then do more of that, because that's how real businesses work. Like right now, the thing that we have in the industry with the newer investors and the different things is everyone's getting taught what to do, but they're not really learning how to think. And so I think the thing that helped us out is like I had a business background before this, so like my whole career was spent learning how to think, and I was in sales and different things. So you learn a basic system, but then you also learn how to think and how to innovate. And so if Silicon Valley, if all they did was just copy off each other, then it wouldn't be as innovative. And I think that's a lot of what we're doing in real estate. Some of us is we're copying each other because that generates a certain level of success, but then we get that cap. And then I found that once we apply like basic business principles, and we systemize things, and we test our marketing and do different things, and we keep continuously learn things. We take training courses ourselves, a lot of them. And the thing is like we take that information that we get, and we make that information fit into what we want to do, and we make it fit into how we want our business to run, and we make it fit into what can make this information more effective. Because a lot of the information, let's say you get some information about how to do marketing. All right, great. Well, that information is set specifically to be scalable or to be received by everyone in the United States. So maybe there's something in your market that you can do that's a little bit different, that someone in Seattle can't do, or someone in Florida can't do, that wouldn't be as effective. But in your market, it will work really well because you know something different about your market, and you can include that with your systems. And so I think that's the thing that a lot of people should just focus on, is how can I make my business better and different, and how can I run my business as a real business and not just like a copycat version of what someone else is doing. Because it's good to model after successful people, but the other thing is you can also like innovate and make it a little better and put your own spin on it. Because just like Bruce Lee learned martial arts from someone, but he ended up innovating on that and creating his own style of martial arts that he felt would be the best type of martial arts, and it ended up being pretty successful.
Yeah, no, it's true. Okay, so I wanted to focus more also on sort of these areas to market to, mm-hmm. and what criteria for people that maybe if they're looking in their own city. So for me, you know, something is sort of, you know, how convenient is it for you? So if you're in a big city, you know, especially like Houston or something like that, where you could spend 2 hours going to a property and back. Yeah. Very easily, and it doesn't make sense for you to be wasting all your time doing that. So it's like, you know, pick a section of town, like you said, median home price area, you know, sort of where the majority of the buyers are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you're going to be doing flips and rehabs, because you want to have the biggest pool of possible people to be able to buy your property when you're done with it.
Absolutely.
So you want to give any tips on that, or maybe even like where to avoid if you're going to be flipping houses?
Well, it depends how your business is set up and who your acquisitions person is. And so if you're the acquisitions person, or you have one acquisition person, then I guess everything depends on how willing how far are you willing to travel, and how much time will that are you willing to spend on that. And so with us, we used to start out and only do like a 1 hour radius within where we live or where our acquisition manager lived. And then we found that was kind of limiting for our business. But I think that's a good way to start out, is just doing an area where you would have no problem getting in your car right now and going there and meeting with the seller. Because I think that if you're doing something and you live in Dallas and you're trying to do some deals in Houston and you're the acquisitions person that has to drive down there, then you're probably going to either miss out on some deals or you're going to put tons of miles on your car trying to get deals, because usually we found that out of every 25 appointments we get or out of every 25 leads we get about one deal out of those. And we could probably bring that down a little bit, but we have a specific criteria on the deals that we bring in. And so but yeah, I think that it's just kind of like personal preference. I think some people say stay away from like the hood areas. Some people say go to the hood areas because that's where you make the most money. Some people say only invest in the high end areas because the profit margins are bigger. Some people say invest in the mid class areas because that's always going to be even in a down market, those areas, people are always going to need homes in those areas. And so I think it's one of those questions where there's not like one specific answer. It's just kind of like what do you want in your business and what works for you. And then so we've tried all different ways, and we found that certain things do work for us and certain don't. And I think the main thing is that I always ask is how much time is it going to take, and how stressful is it going to be. And if either of those isn't an answer to isn't the answer I want, then we don't do it. And so, but other people are I mean, I guess it just depends, because everyone has their own strategy, and some people work 24/7 on this, and I'm not really like that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a matter of, like you said, the hassle factor. I think in the David Hasselhoff factor. No, it's the hassle factor. Like, because sometimes like it is easier to find deals in the war zones, right? Yeah. But then getting rid of them is kind of a problem, and there's the risk factor of just being over there. Yeah. But so you got to weigh that and see if that's just what you're wanting to do or whether you're comfortable with that or not. And then, to me, it's more of, where's the balance? Because I want an area that's not so hard to get deals, but then is also easy to sell. Yeah, definitely. So if I'm going to do the flips or the wholesales, I'm looking at both of those things. I want a lot of investors in those areas like you talked about before, and and sort of an inventory of houses that are a little bit older, at least 20 years or something, because if you go into an area that's only 10 years old, it's going to be kind of tough to find, motivation from houses being in disrepair. Yeah, definitely. And then when you do have that, then sometimes there's not much equity in those areas either. So. Mm-hmm. Well, great. I think we covered a lot of ground on it. I guess the only other thing maybe that I would like to ask is, what is your sort of process once you determine the areas, and how do you start hitting those areas to try to bring in leads? Once we determine the areas, then we mainly do direct mail. So we do like a pretty targeted direct mail list, and then we send that out. And then anytime we do direct mail, we always set up a 6-month mailing. And so sometimes if an area is really hot, like sometimes like the response rate might be like 0.03%, and then so that sometimes it doesn't really work out because you end up breaking even on the leads. And so but we always do a 6-month campaign. So we do a 6-month campaign. We test all our numbers. We see how the response rate is. We see how many leads we're getting in, and then we go from there. And then so I think the main thing is that a lot of people have to focus on, that I needed to focus on early on, that we got really good at, and that's when we got consistent, is follow up. And so the main thing that we like is if anyone calls us, that person just became 10 times more valuable than they were just as a name on the list. Because when they call us,
we now have their phone number. Most likely, we're going to get their email, and then we also know a little bit about their situation, and they talk to us. And so now we have all these different ways that we can contact them. They remember us a little bit more. So even if they don't want to sell their house for a year, they're in our database and they're getting talked to. They're getting emails. They're getting occasional phone calls. And then we're just reminding them that we're the people that they talked to and they liked. And if they ever want to sell their house, then they can sell it to us. And so, because I think a lot of people that I've met, and I was this person before, where even with different types of sales, is once I talk to someone once and they don't want to buy or they don't want to sell to me, then I think that the rest of the time trying to follow up with them wouldn't be that valuable. But what we found is if we get a deal on like the first round of marketing, we usually do, but you can just consider that as being lucky. And then we also know that the rest of the deals that we're going to get are going to be from either the future mailings or the future follow-up calls or the future things that we do. So we never send out mail unless we have a budget for 6 months to continue to mail that same list over and over.
Yeah, that follow-up is just become so important. And it goes back into, it's not like it's something that's recent, where people needed to hear from you more than once.
Yeah.
For the majority of people to want to, work with you. I think the most common statistic given is 7 touches or 7, you got to see your message 7 times or hear from you 7 times. And, that's the whole reason why, I built REI Mobile. Is that software system to keep track of your leads and set your follow-ups and stuff like that is exactly because of that, is the majority of people are going to need to hear from you over time. And when the time is right, you've built the rapport and they've had your message and you burn into their brain so that they give you a call, and then you sort of leave the competition in the dust because they've been long since forgotten, because they weren't following up. But I was going to say something else about the follow-up part of how often. What's your interval for mailing to those people over that 6 months?
It just depends. Like the shortest time that we've done was 2 weeks, and the longest time that we've done is 6-week intervals. And so it just depends how motivated, how urgent it is that the sellers call you. And so if it's just like a regular absentee list, then we probably put that on a little bit longer of a email campaign. I mean, a mailing campaign. And if it's some people that are going to get foreclosed on within the next couple months, 6 months or so, then we're sending them stuff a little more often because they have a higher propensity to call us. And then once they call us, then we now have their phone number. We can call them more often and kind of get to them before they end up running into a big financial problem. So we're just here to help them prevent that and help them get out of that bad situation. Right.
So are you a letter or postcard guy?
I'm still trying to decide. I send if I send 6 mailings, they're probably mixed with some yellow letters, some professional letters, some postcards. But if I had to only pick one, I'd probably pick a handwritten, or a professional letter with a handwritten envelope. And
what you mean by professional is you have like your business logo and stuff on there, right?
Yeah, maybe the business logo sometimes, but more of a typed letter, instead of like a handwritten font letter.
Oh, okay, I see.
So we do that, and we'll probably have the website and the business name and stuff like that on there. But it will have like a higher open rate because of the handwritten font on the outside of the envelope. And what I found is I'm always looking for different business ideas and looking around. And if you think about it, let's think about let's say AT&T. So AT&T, they send out all kinds of mail, millions of dollars a year on mail. But if you look at some of their pieces that they send, recently within the last 6 months, they started sending your information that you need or their new promotions in a handwritten envelope, a handwritten font envelope. and then when you open it, it's a AT&T advertisement or something like that. And so if I just got that letter and it said AT&T on the outside, I probably wouldn't have opened it, but I opened it because it had the handwritten font on it. And so anytime I get some cool mail, I save it and I use that as ideas. And I started noticing that more like big Fortune 500 companies were using that. And so it probably means that it's effective if they're going to spend millions of dollars. They're spending like hundreds of times more on this stuff than I am. And so I'm just sometimes I just follow what the big guys do and see how it works, and we test it and it works pretty good. So maybe it might not work pretty good after this call when everybody starts doing it.
I think most people have been doing handwritten letters though in the investing realm for years.
No, I know.
Anyway, it's just that maybe AT&T's slow to pick up on it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but the other side of that though too is like when people feel like they've been especially from a big company like that, sort of been duped a little bit, like you fooled me into opening this letter, that was just junk mail. But I don't know that would come across the same way from an investor, because it's more of if you have a personal message inside of there instead of like a, just like some kind of marketing ad that's like a hard sell on them or something. But
yeah, I think it matters a lot what you say on the inside, but then what I found is if a person is like really truly motivated and they're ready to sell right now, you can it doesn't really matter what you send them, as long as they open it and they see it, they'll call you. But the thing is most people at this time in the market aren't going to be in that situation. So the most important thing is just to get those leads and then bring them in and put them in your database.
Right. And then, for this series of podcast episodes, obviously I'll have more about direct mail and go into that into detail for everybody out there listening. This episode's more of, targeting those farm areas. But since Lamar had some information to share about that, we went ahead and covered some of it. So I appreciate that. And do you have any sort of horror stories or funny stories of investing that you could share? Just one or...
horror stories? Let's see. Horror stories. No, not really.
Maybe just like a funny thing that happened or something, or...
let me see. Nah, one time I was buying this house and, let's see what happened. Oh, one time I was doing a wholesale deal and I was buying this house. I don't know if this is funny or a horror story, but it was just like an inconvenience to me, so I just remember it. But so one time I'm buying this house, and we're gonna make a pretty good profit on it, and then we're gonna close it and then sell it to another investor. And so we closed our part, and then the investor, they're at closing, and then they call me, and they're like, "Hey, can you drive by the house and tell me if the neighbor's car is still in the yard?" And so they had like a driveway. The neighbor had a driveway that was right next to him, and I guess the previous seller and the neighbor were friends. And so this car was like on the property that we bought, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I guess maybe it was. And so the investor's like, "Hey, I'm not buying this house. And I'm not signing until the car's moved." And so I go to the neighbor's house, I knock on the door, and this like 70-year-old dude answers the door, and I'm like, "Hey, is this your car right here?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, I've been storing it there and I'm gonna leave it there for a little bit." And I was like, we need to move it because we just bought this house, and like we had to move it today. And so I knew he couldn't move it. And then I was by myself with one of my friends, and so we tried to move the car, and then as we're moving it, like the wheels fall off, and then we're like on this hill, and so the car starts sliding back, and then so traffic is coming, and like so the car starts going into the street, and so we end up stopping the car, and we have to like. We get one of the neighbors to come help us out, and they help us get the car back into their driveway, and it's just like this big mess. But eventually, it took us like 4 hours to get it all done, and called and got the deal closed. But that was probably my craziest story that I have. Everything else been pretty smooth.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, Like, oh, you got to move a car. That's not really a crazy story, but the wheels coming off of that makes the whole story. You gotta play that part up a little bit more. But yeah, so that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, Lamar. Is there a way that people out there listening can get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can just find me on Facebook or Instagram. Facebook, Lamar Cannon. Instagram, Lamar Dealmaker is my Instagram name. Or LinkedIn, Lamar Cannon. I'll probably have like a picture of me traveling or something like that, doing something cool. But yeah, just email me or message me that way.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and I'm sure we'll have you back on for some more information if you don't mind in the future.
Oh, that'll be cool. I appreciate you having me. This is awesome.
Yeah. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
All right, another great episode of the podcast, and really appreciate Lamar coming on and sharing that information, especially the stuff about finding out where the active areas are without even having to pay for it through going to ListSource and doing some of that criteria, and then doing a preview and figuring out the tally of records based on that criteria. I'll go ahead and include the stuff he mentioned in that criteria on the show notes page so that you can check that out, because I know sometimes listening it's kind of hard to put it all together mentally or to write it down, and most of you probably aren't sitting at a desk just listening to this taking notes, so you can visit the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/39. Yes, 39. flippingjunkie.com/39. And just to reiterate the point from Lamar about follow-up is so important. It's just you take these, you get leads from people and they're not sure, they're not ready to sell at that moment, but they're wanting to find out some information about how it works. So they want to know how you buy houses, but they're not ready to accept the offer that you're making early on. So you've got to do follow-up. You've got to set a way to have follow-up reminders. And as you get more and more leads, that becomes sort of difficult to do. And that's why I created that system, reimobile.com. You should check it out if you haven't. A great way to maximize the number of leads that you convert into deals over time, because that's what matters. And so definitely is an investment that pays dividends, and you get a lot of return from it. So check that out. Check out our real estate investor websites at leadpropeller.com, and I'll leave you with that. We'll start getting into the next episode. We're going to be covering a lot of marketing, so you're going to start generating lots of leads, and you'll want to have a system to help you maximize those. So have a great week. See you next time.